Hi everybody, this is part 3 of living with a brain tumor. I've been, I made an undertaking rather, that I will take you through my journey of how it's been like, or how it is like living with a brain tumor for about 7 years now, at least 7 years, as I said when I was in part 2. So in part 2, I took you through 2018 and how I found out, the symptoms of the brain tumor, which I didn't know at the time, the lactating, if you remember. And then now I'm just gonna take you through 2019, whereby I went on a trip to Portugal on invitation by a company called iBird. My sister, who is a quantity surveyor, beautiful young lady, very, very focused, was working with them at the time, and they were doing BIM modeling, and they really thought that because I was in the space of property management and looking after a lot of real estate and thousands of buildings and spaces where drawings and records are essential. So they invited me on this trip, and there was a conference with the Chamber of Commerce of South Africa, and we were hosted by one of the directors, who is an architect, Nino, a really good friend, and and they took us through Portugal and saw all the great architecture. I actually even found out that Portugal has 2 Nobel Prize winners who are architects, which is really, really amazing. But it is evident when you get to the country and you see all the amazing architecture and buildings. So it was a really amazing trip, very insightful trip on that note. And then fast forward, in the middle of the trip, we happened to get into a hotel that seemed like just a normal, nice hotel, But by that evening, I think on our first evening there was this high level of security. It's like, so who's coming here? Some dignitaries or whatever, we didn't know. Turned out it was the Portugal first team, the soccer team. And guess who? Cristiano Ronaldo was amongst the team players, and it was actually slam bang in that period of the UEFA Championships, which we of course knew very little about at the time with my sister. So we got excited. It was really amazing, and we were hoping the whole time for a photo op, but we just didn't know where and how because the security was so tight around them. So how does that come back to the brain tumor? So I'm not a doctor, I'm not a nurse, I'm not a healthcare practitioner. I'm just a patient or someone who has a condition and has had to do so much digging and so much research on my own condition, largely because doctors say very little, and you suffer so many different symptoms ranging across your entire body to the point where you think you are crazy and you think something is wrong in your head. And as my sister said it, I told you guys the last time, there was definitely something wrong in my head, just wasn't what needed antidepressants as they had thought. So anyways, a brain tumor on the pituitary gland. The pituitary gland, as I said in part 1, is not in your stomach, as someone thought. It's right here at the base of your brain, in between your optic nerves, and it's a very important gland. So biology 101, I remembered from high school, it's responsible for your metabolic function, your reproductive function, your sexuality, your hormone function, and a whole host of other things, and controlling other glands as well. and your entire endocrine system, essentially. So I say this because in the course of all of that excitement, the team is there. It was really nice because I had entered Mrs. South Africa at the time, and I was really, really up for the running. I had a good feeling. I was going to do really great. I had a lot of support, and I was doing the things. You know, I was supporting the other contestants. They were supporting me. I stood a really good chance, and it was an exciting time in my life. There were other challenges, you know, yeah, like a lot of other challenges I can tell you when I record for other reasons, but I want to stay focused on this thing right now. But there was always that silver lining. I mean, that trip on its own was a silver lining. It allowed me the opportunity to do a lot of content for Mrs. SA. When you enter a pageant, you're supposed to post and do this and do that and do that. So that trip was really like hitting two birds with one stone. It was really insightful for my career, and I was really marveling at iBird and the work that they do in BIM modeling. I went to their head office, I saw some of their clients, and they were really, really generous, the guys, during that trip, and I really learned a lot, and I really appreciated the value that BIM modeling could bring into real estate. So as I said, I've always enjoyed the work that I do and the exposure that it gives me from a travel point of view, and I always try to make sure that I work hard and play hard, and so it was a good mix until this fateful morning where we get out of the lift going for breakfast. I was actually gonna go shopping on that day for my pageant dress for the semi-finals. And then, as you'd know, in Europe, you walk a lot. In fact, I really look forward to that. You just bring the right pair of shoes and all you do is walk all day, and it's really amazing because there's so much to see anyway, and it's safe and you're able to do so and just come back home having shed a few kilos. So this morning we get out of the lift, and right there was a number of players taking pictures, but of course the key player was Cristiano Ronaldo. A little boy was taking pictures, his parents was taking pictures of him, we're taking pictures of him, and then we were like, oh my gosh, please can I have a picture? And he agreed. So I then got to stand in the queue just behind this little boy. So it wasn't even a long queue. It wasn't like a stampede. There were no people there. I wasn't jumping. I didn't have to jump, and like really like no drama about it, right? I was wearing flat shoes. It was a pair of boots that I just bought in Portugal, and no heels, no towels, no slippery floor, nothing. I didn't fall, I didn't slip, I didn't trip, I promise you guys. And I stood there, made a few poses, and I don't know, when I left, walking towards the car, I could feel the pain on my foot. It was my right foot, fifth metatarsal. I only knew it's called a metatarsal after it was broken, of course. And I knew deep down something was terribly wrong. I was in a lot of pain, but I've got a high threshold for pain. So continued to the car, we drove to the shopping center, and as you enter the shopping center, there's actually a clinic, so to speak. And I decided, you know what, you know when you have that voice that talks to you at the back of your head, I was like, if I enter here, they're gonna find that I'm broken. Well, I've broken my foot. Then they're gonna wanna put a POP or x-rays and whatever, and that's just gonna put a dampener to my trip. So actually, I'm just gonna think this as a sprain and find a pharmacy, so which I did. Found a pharmacy. I said, I was taking a picture, I think I sprained my foot. It was already starting to show inflammation, so they just wrapped it in a bandage, and then I carried on with some painkillers and went around shopping. Fast forward, I fitted all my dresses, had to fit heels for the pageant with a swollen foot with a bandage and painful. but I did. I found an amazing dress, and all was good and well. And fast forward, I took a lot of pictures. I came back home, but sadly, after the semi-finals, which I got in on a moon boot, I was wearing a moon boot and a heel on the one side, came home, and I just could not carry on with the pageant because not fast forward, going backwards a little bit, rewind. When I got off the plane, my foot was properly swollen. So I arrived home, I rested, and then I went to see the doctor. He sent me for an x-ray. He told me in his rooms, he was like, this foot is broken. I went, and the thing was, when you speak to people and you're like, I sprained my foot, I think it's broken. They're like, no, if it was broken, you wouldn't even be able to step on it. So I was like, okay, maybe they have a point, you know? But the doctor said, this foot is broken, you need to go for x-rays, which I did, and indeed the x-rays found that the foot was properly fractured, but like the bones were like with a nice spacing between them, you know? And of course, I must have also done a lot of damage to it from the point of the initial sprain or whatever it was initially, if it wasn't an initial fracture, to all that walking. And yeah, so it was properly broken. And needless to say, I had to bow out of the pageant because I just couldn't keep up with everything that needed to happen, juggling a career and everything else around life and life's responsibilities. Eventually, my bone just wasn't mending, it wasn't coming together, even with the moon boot having been in place for like 3 months. So I think the pageant was in June, yeah, the trip was in June, and eventually in August or September, 3 months after I was on a moon boot and nothing was coming together, the doctor had to make a call to do surgery. So I had surgery, and they put a pin to put the bones together, and eventually the bones came together and healed, you know, after however many weeks of having the moon boot and the stitches and the pin in there. So yeah, so in my mind, lay person's mind, I'm thinking that there was no reason properly to explain how my foot broke. Nothing dramatic happened. The only drama was Cristiano. But my foot broke nonetheless. Now, for a bone to break like that suggests to me that there must have been something not really right with my body and my system. And how I have deduced it is that I told you I had 5 surgeries, this being one of them, you know, the last or the latest being in 2023. And in both cases, 2023 and 2022, when they operated both my limbs, they found deposits of calcium on my joints. So my suspicion, and how the doctor explained it, is that the calcium is not going into the bones sufficiently, and it was sitting and calcifying on my joints. So in my mind, I'm thinking that's the function of metabolism that the pituitary gland is responsible for, and it wasn't functioning as well as it ought to have. And so that's what led to that. Nobody can explain to me any differently, so that's my view. And it helps me, I guess, because then I don't think of myself as having a myriad of problems. I can really, just with my own logic and common sense, bring it all to this one thing. And therefore, when I understand how this one thing functions, I then understand how the other things are malfunctioning because there was a malfunction there. But anyway, yeah, I was just taking you through, you know, as we've been coming along over the years. But for now, I'm good. I've had a good day today. Did a lot of driving. My eyes are still feeling good, not exceptionally exhausted. Yesterday they were very tired. I did some driving and my eyes were very tired. I was driving during the day, and the day before my eyes were also very tired. In fact, I was just overall fatigued because I took my meds 2 nights ago, and I woke up with a terrible headache this morning. But as the morning went on, it disappeared on its own and I didn't have to take meds. So I'm really, really grateful for that. So I'm really grateful God has been by my side. His mercies have been sufficient, taking me through from one day to the next for me to be able to sit here, be steady, stable, and strong. And there's lights above me is a good sign. And I pray, please God, I'm making very good progress. And I'll come back to you with part 4 and take you through 2020, 2021, up to leading up to where we are today. But otherwise, I hope you like my videos. I hope you find it useful if you have someone who is sick, and I hope it gives them hope to know they will get on the other side of whatever that illness or that challenge is. This too shall pass. I do want to talk to you about the importance of insurance, because if it wasn't for insurance and income continuation benefit, I actually would have lost my mind completely. It wouldn't have helped my health to sit with financial burdens on top of everything that I'm already sitting with. The financial sacrifices have been a lot. But I'm gonna take you through all of that, and my anxieties about my working life, my career, where does it stand, how do I move forward from where I am. And I've got an appointment coming up, a review for my eyes coming up in about 2 weeks from now, and I'll give you feedback as to how that goes. But for now, just follow and like and take care. Godspeed to anyone who's not feeling well, and I promise you it shall pass. Do not lose faith. Do not lose hope. Do not lose your optimism. And that's from my rose-colored glasses, the lens through which I see life right now, which is always positive. There should be always something positive that we take away from any situation that we go through, because God is always intentional. Bye.